Hi friends, I'm Chelsea Grayson coming to you once again from the Office of the CEO. This is my show where I can help you be more successful in your current career, and I can also help you successfully transition to a new career. So today we're continuing our multi-part series on when you're transitioning to a new career and that new career is a business of your own, how do you go about drafting the business plan? And today's episode will specifically address the part of your business plan where you talk about your target audience, so the target market, as well as why is it that that's the desired market for your business. So this is where you talk about who am I targeting in terms of who's going to spend money on my product or services, and how much money do they have to spend, and how much money are they willing to spend on my product or services. So the biggest mistake that I see commonly made by folks when they get to this section of the business plan is that they talk about an incredibly broad market, a huge audience, with tons and tons of dollars to spend. And I think that people do this because, they're overly optimistic for sure, but they think the reader wants to see that there's $1 billion audience out there with billions of dollars to spend. And actually that really turns the reader off because it just looks overly broad. It looks a little bit inauthentic, right? And it's not targeted enough so that it will be very difficult when you engage in your go-to-market strategy in terms of how do you do effective marketing when your target audience is the entire world. How do you market? How do you know where to spend your marketing dollars? How do you know who to target with paid ads or targeted emails? If the market is too big, you're just marketing to the entire universe, right? So the first thing you need to take a look at is who is going to want, who is going to need, or who can you convince that they're going to need your product or your services. You take a look at age ranges, you take a look at geography, where are these people, where do they travel to, you take a look at other demographics, right? So I wrote a list down here. You take a look at how old are they, what's their income like, is any part of their income expendable, what's the gender identity, what level of education have these folks reached generally, what are their careers, what are their professions, what are their hobbies, what are they interested in doing? And so then you have to narrow it down a little bit, right? Because so in a previous episode of this series, we talked about Ben & Jerry's, right? But Ben & Jerry's would not probably have started out in their business plan by saying, we're targeting everybody who likes to eat ice cream. That's a lot of people. By the way, on a personal note, that doesn't include me. I happen to be one of those weird weirdos that doesn't like ice cream. But most people do like ice cream, but you would have never seen in a business plan, we're targeting people who eat ice cream, right? Ben & Jerry's probably talked about a middling-aged consumer who maybe a boomer, right? Who sort of missed the days of the 60s, for example, when they were coming up, where there was a lot of social activism, where people really felt like they identified themselves by standing next to a political or a philosophical tenet. People who had reached a certain point in their careers where they had made some money, they'd made enough money to live comfortably, but now they wanted to start giving back. So they were at a point where they could afford to start giving back. And they also felt like they wanted to start decreasing their carbon footprint, and they were really taking a look at companies who were manufacturing in a green or sustainable way. That was sort of the beginning of the whole sustainable manufacturing movement, right? So Ben & Jerry's would have targeted that very specific audience, not just all people who like ice cream, which could include people who are, 2 years old all the way up to 95-year-olds in a retirement home, right? Then what Ben & Jerry's probably did, and again, I'm speculating because I've not seen the original business plan of Ben & Jerry's, is that they would have said, now, why is this the market that we are targeting? And that's what you need to ask yourself. So you want to sell streetwear to millennials. Why is it that you want to do that? So you need to take a look at what their spending power is. How much are those folks generally making? What do they generally have? You want to take a look at what's their expendable income, because you're talking about something that's not a necessity, it's a want, right? And then you want to take a look at, what are they actually spending? What are their spending habits? So what do they have? What can they spend? And what are they actually spending? Now, again, this doesn't have to be $1 billion audience. This doesn't have to be an audience that spends tons and tons of cash every year. But you do have to show that they have some money to spend, that this is an audience that would appreciate your product or service, and that they do spend money or would spend money on this particular product or service. So this is really a time for you to go to ground and really explore, am I going after the right audience, or have I been thinking about my product and service wrong this whole time, and do I need to switch audiences a little bit? Whether because I need to get more focused, because it'll be easier to market to a more focused group, whether it's because, wow, I was making for a particular audience. I was making ice cream for 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds don't have a lot of money. Oh, I was making ice cream for 5-year-olds of parents who live in a certain area of the country. Oh, wow, are we aware that those people don't have a lot of money because there's not a lot of industry happening in that area of the country, so even their parents don't have the money to spend on ice cream. So you really want to take a look at your target audience and make sure that not only are they there, not only do they want to use your product or your service, but that they have the money to do so, and that they're willing to spend the money on something similar to what it is that you make or provide for them. Again, this is a time of soul searching. You may or may not like the answer that you come to. You may have to pivot a little bit, but this is for sure what investors will be asking you, and for sure what they're going to be taking a hard look at in your business plan. And by the way, they're going to do their own market research. So you absolutely have to go out and rely on more than just the internet, right? You've got to do some hard market research in terms of the demographic of this audience and in terms of what their spending habits are, and make sure that you can back it all up. This is probably one of the first sections that we've gone over where you'll have a lot of footnotes in this section, because you'll for sure want to refer to things like McKinsey reports, Harvard Business Review, other case studies that are available in the public domain. You might want to engage a brand specialist to go out and actually do a market survey for you. This is where you might want to spend a few dollars, and you'll want to footnote all of the findings that happened in that brand study. This is an extremely data-driven section of your business plan, but as I said earlier, it's something you're going to be hit with questions about, and more importantly, it will help you further focus. Why is it that this is my target audience? Why is this a desirable audience? What can they spend now, and what will they be willing to spend in the future? Before I leave you from this episode, I just want to also remind you of another case study that we've been talking about every once in a while in this series, which is Amazon, right? And we've talked about how Amazon started out as an online bookseller. So their original business plan probably mainly focused on people who love to read, don't have a Barnes & Noble anywhere near them, or for whatever reason don't need to go into a Barnes & Noble and are willing to, and in fact desire an ability to buy a ton of books online, have them delivered right to the house if it's going to cost all the same, right? If it's going to be free delivery. And that's a more convenient and a more streamlined way for them to purchase books, right? So that was their original audience, and I'm sure they talked about, how many people actively read, what sorts of numbers are Barnes & Noble and Borders making, how many of those folks are in a particular age range where they're used to shopping online, and are comfortable not physically going through books in a bookstore, all of that, right? Now, later on, they probably when they revised their strategic plan as they were moving forward, and their audience started to expand because their capabilities started to expand, and it was Bezos, probably his big vision all along in his brain, where they started to provide other products in addition to books, and they truly became an omnipresent online marketplace. Now their audience changes, right? Now it really is the whole universe will want to buy stuff from us, and the whole universe needs whatever it is we're providing, because we pretty much provide everything. But I can almost guarantee you that wasn't in Jeff Bezos' original business plan, because no investor would have looked at that and said, oh, okay, I'm buying into that huge vision that you've just set out, and I'm going to put a lot of money into this company. Sometimes it's smarter to start more focused, talk about what you want to have happen now and over the course of 5 years, and then in a separate section in the business plan, talk about how you see this thing octopussing out, right? How you see this thing growing in the future, what you think the future markets of this company could be, versus what the present market is. So I want to leave you with that very important point, and we'll certainly get to future markets as we move along in this series. But for now, thank you for joining me from the Office of the CEO, and I'll see you next time.